Hello and welcome to Wyrd Wessex. My name's Andy,
And my name's Craig.
and we have a special guest with us today, don't we, Craig?
We do. Very pleased to welcome Mike Ricksecker to the show. Welcome,
Thank you
Mike.
so much, Craig and Andy. I really appreciate joining you guys today.
It is our pleasure. So I thought maybe we might start off for anyone that maybe isn't aware of what you do. Can you maybe give us like the elevator pitch? I know we were just talking about how many different
Yeah.
things you cover, but
Yeah, you could do an abbreviated one if you like.
Yeah, I'm Mike Ricksecker and I do stuff. There we go.
Hey, I like that.
next
Uh,
question.
yeah, next question. Yeah, but actually I do a lot of stuff. So I'm primarily an author, but I'm also a researcher, a filmmaker. I've been on a lot of the different television shows like Ancient Aliens, The Alaska Triangle, The Unexplained. Um, I'm a podcast host myself and have my hands on a lot of different projects. I host tours out to Egypt and yeah, it's a lot of different things.
I've
Yeah,
got
and
just to throw it in really quickly is do you think part of it's because you find a new interest and sort of go towards that, or is it you're one of these people that just has to be busy with everything, you know?
It might be a little bit of both. I can say this, I'm never bored. I always have something. But as I've gone down the rabbit holes of my research, I keep finding that all of these different topics and all these different areas of research are really connected to each other. And
mm,
so, once I start finding, oh, these things over here are connected to those over there, now I have to do that research and go down that rabbit hole. So yeah, I end up with 5,000 different things on my plate, but I also have interest in a lot of different areas as well. So like right now I'm working on three different books. One of them is actually a fiction novel. One of them is a compendium of a lot of the like blogging and other work that I've done. And then one is a new book that to piggyback off of the third in the Connecting the Universe series. And oh, by the way, I'm also a publisher, so I'm in the middle of editing another person's book as well. So, there's
Wow.
that.
just another.
It's like
Okay.
really four books. Yeah.
Occasionally, it's rumored that he sleeps.
Right, right. A lot of coffee, not much sleep. Exactly.
So just to follow on to that, I guess, what led you to become a paranormal sort of researcher, sort of, and then onto the author? And I'm guessing, did that follow on, like the author side of it, follow on from the research?
Actually, I've been writing ever since I was about 7 years old. So that part has always been there. And really, it started with the fiction work. So my first published book was a mystery novel, but I'd always had an interest in the paranormal. I'm an experiencer going back to when I was about 8 years old, where I had an incident with what we'd call a shadow person. Woke up in the middle of the night, tall, dark, humanoid figure standing in the corner of my bedroom. Of course, not realizing at that point in my life that that's what it was, what we would call a shadow
Yeah.
person, and had several other experiences throughout my childhood. So I'd always had that interest. Did a lot of research over the years, kind of on the side, not formally as a paranormal investigator. I kind of did that later, but I got involved with a lot of whether it was internet forums, Yahoo groups used to be a thing, and, all that sort of stuff. So it was always there in the background while I was working on my fiction writing. And then this tells you how long ago it was. I was marketing that mystery novel and which came out in 2004, and I was marketing this on MySpace. And I had the woman who became my editor for Schiffer Publishing. I published three books with them, and she said, "Hey, I know that you're a fiction writer, but I see that you're living in Maryland and you have an interest in the paranormal, and we are expanding our line of paranormal books, and we need somebody to cover true ghost stories and hauntings in the state of Maryland. Would you be willing to take on that project?" And yeah, and so it really fell into my lap with the paranormal research. I always liken it to the universe decided to steer me in a certain direction. Hey, okay, you're a writer, you've gotten stuff published. Now let's steer you in this direction. And so that really kind of formally began my career in paranormal research, even though I'd been doing it for about 15 years before that.
I
Fantastic.
do have some questions coming up later that'll go back into your shadow people stuff.
Sure.
So I'm going to stick a pin in that because I've got some things for that
Yeah.
later. But whilst we're kind
Mhm.
of talking about kind of generally what you do in your research, I was wondering kind of what your key methodologies are and approaches you employ when researching anything in the unexplained, right? Because you kind of need
Yeah.
a balanced perspective, right, that acknowledges both the possibility of something and kind of, I suppose, a healthy skepticism.
Right.
So, yeah, what would your approach be to that?
Yeah, I actually used to do a whole nuts and bolts class on conducting the research. So even like getting into, we're digging up old, land records and tax records and things like that to learn more about the, property of where a specific maybe haunting or something like that is happening. I love historic research. I want to get to the roots of everything. I want to find the origins of these things. So any way that I can get my hand on original source material. So like I'm going to libraries, I'm diving into the old books, I'm going into newspaper archives and all of that. I'm going to the locations and talking to the people that work there and that have their hands on artifacts and things like this because a lot of it's not public. But one of the wonderful things about being a researcher in this field and really a lot of different fields is when you go to the locations and you talk to the people, they'll say, "Oh, let me take you to this back room, this place that's off limits to the public, and let me show you these other things that we have back here that people don't normally get to see," which is fascinating. And so you see those items and you learn more about some of the history of these locations, and other things start to click and make sense. Especially, my gosh, especially with the Egypt tours that we do. I mean, I've always been interested in Egyptology and had seen all kinds of films and documentaries about Egypt, of course, plenty of photos and all of that. But when I first went there, it everything just sort of clicked. I was awestruck for one, but just the enormity of everything. But finally being able to piece together and draw the connections, seeing it with my own eyes was extremely helpful.
So, do you think that sort of TV does it help or hinder that sort of research into the paranormal? So it's often sort of used by skeptics as a thing sort of to point to prove a non-existence of something. Do you think that sort of sort of television itself that side of it can sort of help or hinder?
Yeah, it's mixed, and a being a person that's on television, that's a person would probably say, oh, I want to try to edify everything that we're doing on TV, but there are times where I'm watching shows that I've been on and seeing some of my other colleagues, and many of them, they're great researchers, a number of wonderful people, but there are some roads that sometimes people go down, or it might even just be the way that the piece was edited, and they say something like outlandish. I'm just shaking my head like, oh my gosh, guys, why? But so there are
Um,
pros and cons to it. Like it's back in the late 90s, we had a couple of television shows come out like Scariest Places on Earth or Ghost Hunters in these shows, which had really been the first since In Search of back in the late 70s, early 80s with Leonard Nimoy that really covered a lot of these different types of topics. And, it was really at that point, taboo to talk about it. You had, again, the kind of internet forums had started to really proliferate a lot of the material and people were getting together and having these discussions. Hey, I had this experience. Oh, so did I. And which was wonderful. So that helped. Television, I believe, when it came about and you started seeing this on a much bigger platform. I think it helped people to realize that, hey, I'm not alone. I've also had these experiences and caused people to be more open. They uh, got to realize that other people were talking about this. And even though their family, yeah, maybe they made fun of them or told them they were crazy or something like that for whatever their experience was. No, now they had a community that they could go to. So I think television has really helped in that way to show people that things really are happening in our world. And yeah, they might show some of the different methods. And I think it's really kind of an introduction to uh, really how the field works and how it operates. It's very, very different when you're actually sitting in an abandoned building for 6 hours than
Yeah.
watching a 40-minute television show. But I think it's a nice introduction for people, and if they want to know more, there are resources for that they can find.
I like that. I mean, it's one of those things, I suppose, isn't it, where you'll sort of record something like that, I guess, and then they'll edit in a way to make something look like it happened differently to how it actually
Yeah.
happened. And of course, everyone's going to pick up on that and go, "Oh, that's faked or that's edited that way." And you think you've just undone like everything that we were actually trying to do. But at least I've heard from other people that have worked in similar sort of fields. But I don't know if you're familiar with Most Haunted.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen some
it's
episodes of that. Yeah.
it's sort of always been a bit of a gripe of Craig's and mine. It's how like it started off quite serious, and then there's like, okay, jump scares are what one of people see, and it kind of went from something that looked quite serious in its investigations to something that was a bit sometimes gimmicky. But
Yeah, and that's what television will do. You look at the evolution of paranormal television, and it really just started off with, okay, we're introducing a location that might be haunted, and like the first season of Ghost Hunters, which was pretty popular over here. There was like only 2 episodes that first season where they actually deemed the place haunted, and everything else that they were able to debunk. And then the networks came along and said, well, we need more of these places to be haunted. So then more were haunted, and they were all haunted. And then it just kind of, and not just picking on Ghost Hunters specifically, but
Yeah.
other
No, I
television
get it.
shows as well. It just became, yes, a lot with the jump scares, whoa, that sort of thing. And now everything's demonic, and it just, yeah, it
Mhm.
kind of went down a dark area.
yeah,
And it's really, yeah, the way that they edit things, like the first television that I was ever on, The Haunted, which aired on Animal Planet, the way that they depicted that story was, here was this family that had been haunted for 20 years, and they finally all came together, discussed what was going on, reached out to us. We came in, deemed that there was something nefarious there going on, and one day called Carl Johnson, a demonologist, to come out and cleanse the place, which is not the way that it happened. We had investigated there many, many times for the better part of a year, and it was only through some connections that we had with the network that, okay, we're going to film a television show about this and cover that. And they wanted to bring Carl out, and we had. Carl had some introductions and telephone calls and things like this with the family over time, and so we brought him out for that to do the cleansing. But very, very different between what they showed on the show and what really happened.
I think that's like there's a YouTube channel that I like to watch because where they don't have a big network behind them, they kind of show things as they are. So a lot of the time,
Mhm.
nothing happens. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
come across it. It's called Haunt Hounds.
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
Fairly small channel. It's a guy called Olin Rogers and his friends. He made
Mhm.
an animated series for Netflix a few years
Oh, nice.
back called Final Space, and he just likes ghost hunting. So they go out with some equipment, and most of the time you watch, and it's just a bunch of mates walking around abandoned buildings, sitting in the
Yeah.
dark, and nothing's happening, right? But every now and
Yeah.
again, you're like, wait, what was that? And you can tell it's not faked because of there's that. There doesn't seem to be
Right.
any reson for them to fake anything. They just put out what happens.
I mean, so
Yeah.
when we go to sites, we haven't got any of the equipment or real training for ghost hunting, but we go to places that are haunted or said to be haunted sometimes for the show, and a lot of it is just us sitting around in the dark,
Yeah.
having a giggle about it, But yeah,
Right. Yeah, I used to do a lot of that on YouTube as well. I have, and they're still on my channel, this whole series of paranormal investigation videos. And yeah, a lot of it is just sitting in the dark. You might get a little EVP, or, some weird things might happen, but, it's mostly, I don't know. I guess I kind of looked at it as a lot of these are historic walkthroughs of this, cool building that has a lot of history behind it. And yeah, there are some things that happen, but they're not like the big jump scares or anything like that.
I'm going to jump to a question that's much later on because I think it ties in quite
Mhm.
nicely here. It's something we've asked a few people as well is so if you tell someone you've seen a ghost or even if you believe in God, most people will kind of, they won't ridicule you for it. But if you say you've seen a UFO or aliens, it's instantly that, oh, you need to put on your tinfoil hat and it's ridiculed. And we're trying to get to the bottom of why is it Like, why do you think people have that
Could
differentiation between the two things?
could I just say I was just about texting Craig saying we need to ask that question. So well done.
Psychic link.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I've seen it go both ways where there are some people that they're fine with the idea of a ghost and God
Yeah.
and all that. And yeah, when you say something about UFOs or extraterrestrials, it turns them off. But then I've seen it the other way where people because the idea of other life in the universe makes sense to them. That's fine, but the idea of a ghost and a haunting is not. So, prime example
Yeah.
of that one is my sister, where she's never believed in any of the work that I've done, especially when I was doing more of the paranormal investigations and all that. It would drive her nuts when my niece and nephew would because I would keep equipment in the back of my car for a long time, and they're like, "Hey, Uncle Mike, can we play with your ghost hunting equipment?" Yeah, yeah, sure. And so I'd let him run around with it, and it would drive her nuts. Until one day, she was at Myrtle Beach. She likes to go down there with her family and bring other family members with. So she and my brother-in-law's brother together witnessed a UFO off the coast of Myrtle Beach. And so, yeah, now she's a believer of UFOs. But still not ghosts. So it's interesting how just
Yeah.
it almost depends on who you are. Um, I think where it comes into play the stigmatism against extraterrestrials and UFOs is unfortunately a lot of the abduction case scenarios that people have talked about that and it gets made fun of that people have these experiences where they're abducted by extraterrestrials and they went through these medical procedures and they were probed and all this sort of things and there's this stigmatism of that's really fanciful or they're just off the wall or crazy or that sort of thing. I think just spotting a UFO in the sky, people are more accepting of that. Okay, yeah, could something come into our universe and kind of buzz by the planet and observe what's going on down here? I think that's a little bit more acceptable. But when you start talking about the abduction scenario cases, that's where it turns people off, which I find interesting because we've had those types of stories for millennia, just not in the
Mm.
context of extraterrestrials and little green men and all that. Like, you have a bunch of fairy lore from hundreds of years ago where people were abducted and taken into other realms and had these
Mm.
experiences with the fairies. Now, in today's modern context, is the extraterrestrials instead.
I like, yeah, we've mentioned that a little bit before with the the sort of the fairy law being replaced by UFOs. I always found that really interesting, and I almost like to believe it could be both ways. It could be there were actually aliens all along, or they're actually still the Fae, and we're just perceiving them in a different way. Could be either.
Could be
Um,
both, yes.
yeah. So your book, A Walk in the Shadows, it's sort of deep dive into shadow people, as we mentioned
Mhm.
before. Could you sort of explain a little more to our listeners what these entities are and what distinguishes sort of them from other paranormal phenomena, like sort of your standard ghost or spirit or sort of minor demon, whatever you will?
Right. Yeah, that's a question that I get a lot. What is a shadow person? And it's like, well, how much time do we have? Because there's not one singular answer for it. You can't just like neatly wrap it in a bow and say, here it is. This is a shadow person. Because it's really when we see these shadows, it's the way that our eyes are perceiving light. We only see to a very narrow band of the spectrum. And these things are basically operating on some sort of different frequency or wavelength, or the reflection of the light off them is only being taken into our eyes a certain way. 'Cause some of them are very, very solid. Some of them are translucent in nature. Some just only take the form of a mist or a wisp and some of these other things. So yeah, they can be a lot of different things. They can be a human spirit that's not fully forming as an apparition. They could be some sort of interdimensional being. They could actually be an extraterrestrial themselves, or they could even be like astral projections, time slips, a variety of different things. Again, it's just the way that we are seeing something in our environment through the very narrow band that we can see through
Yeah.
our eyes.
Yeah, I've kind of that's the way I've been explaining things lately, even as far as the likes of, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and probably even UAPs. I think we know that time isn't linear, right? So
Right.
it seems logical that if there's some kind of glitch somewhere, maybe we're seeing something from the past or the future, which would explain, why we don't find Bigfoot bodies or
Yeah.
alien bodies or anything like that. That seems to make the most sense to me at the moment.
It's funny, the ghost stories my dad always told me as a kid, the ones that stuck with me were the ones that, like the case of the Roman Legion in York and stuff like that. It was stuff that kind of seemed more like a slip in time than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard stories like that before of people seeing Roman soldiers and things like that throughout the UK, which is fascinating. I would love to see. I mean, we're not going to see that here in America, but yeah, I mean, people see more historic ghosts, whether it's from our Civil War
Like
or
Gettysburg's got some, hasn't it? I
yeah,
think.
Gettysburg has a lot that when people report, yeah, they'll come into the visitor centers like, oh, that was a wonderful reenactment that you had out there, and we weren't running a reenactment. So yeah, a lot of people kind of chalk those up to a kind of quote unquote residual haunt, and I think more so they're probably time slips that you are actually seeing a moment from time play out, and it's really yeah, like you said, time isn't linear. Time doesn't really exist. That's just it's a human construct
Yeah.
to help us describe our
Yeah.
reality. But yeah, all time is here concurrently, past, present, and future, and every moment in time has its own frequency. Well, sometimes two of those moments will resonate at the same frequency for
Mm.
a brief moment, and they'll overlap, and one will be able to see the other.
I'm wondering whether, as we're on shadow people, Andy, should I briefly tell him about the experiences in my house?
Yeah, I was going to
Go for
say,
it.
and yeah, I've got one that's a little bit similar, but yeah, you go first.
I'll keep them brief because I think
Yeah.
we've probably
Yeah,
spoke about them on the
definitely.
podcast before. But shortly after I moved here, I've been here about 6 years now, and there was a thing where my daughter, she was 2 at the time, she come into the bedroom in the morning, she gets into bed, she looks across the bedroom and she says, "Daddy, why is there a shadow over there with a hat on it?"
Ah, okay. So one of the Hat Man experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like the first one, and then it was maybe a few days later, is she was in the car parked out the front of the house with my wife. I was just locking up the door, and when I get into the car, my wife said, "Oh, she's just told me that the shadow with a hat's watching us out the bedroom window, same room."
Mm, yeah.
We have other neighbors that have seen similar things, and there's another occasion in the same year where I saw something run across the garden, and as you said, peripheral vision, and as I turned, it literally disappeared in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
we've
that and
connected
that's an
them, but
interesting yeah, and that's an interesting phenomenon right there as well because we actually take in more light from the sides of our eyes
yeah.
from our peripheral vision and we actually see slightly into the infrared. So, yeah, and it's just the way that the rods and cones are formed up in our eyes. We take in more light from there. So, yeah, we see a little bit further into different bands through the sides of our eyes. So yeah, we can catch something out of our periphery, and it's not that it disappears when we turn. It's just the ways that our eyes work, and oh, yeah, it seems like it's gone, but it's really
I
not,
mean,
which is
it may,
It
interesting.
freaked me out a bit because, yeah, the heart gets racing because I thought
Yeah,
my initial reaction was someone's in my garden.
sure.
And then
Yeah,
as I turned, they just kind of disappeared. Yeah, very
I mean,
strange.
it's sort of an evolutionary advantage initially, isn't it? I guess having vision that works that way, so you can
yeah,
catch whether it's prey or predators in your peripheral, so you can spot them and know something's there. We're sort of hardwired to look for threats or potential that way. So, um,
yeah.
Mm.
yeah, I won't go into it too much, but yeah, I had a similar experience when I was a kid, in my bedroom. I apparently went the next morning and told my parents that this is about the age of like 4 or 5, and it could have been imagination, but all about this shadowy man in a funny crooked hat and old kind of basically vague shapes of old clothes on him, sat in my
Mm.
chair and started talking to me. I kind of wish I remember what he said, but I don't know.
Oh wow.
Mr. Barlin had an experience like that. I remember listening to one of his podcasts, and he had a very similar experience when he was staying over a friend's house as a kid or something. So yeah, it's more. So I didn't realize it as much until sort of looking into this interview, just how common that is.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Mm.
really is. And the fact that he sat there and was having a conversation with you is fantastic. Yeah. I bet you wish you could remember
Oh,
what was said.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, and it's stories like that that or I mean, they're really validating for a lot of people when other people, start to hear those stories like, oh, this has happened for other people. But also it helps that because we have a propensity, especially through television and all that, to fear what we don't understand, and then kind of demonize these sorts of beings and entities, and whatever it is that we're interacting with. So you have people out there that are kind of classified all of these shadows as like demonic, dark, nasty, and nefarious. Where it's like, well, most of them. No, I mean, most of them are actually rather benign. They're neither evil
Mm.
nor good. They're just kind of doing their thing. But yeah, you sitting down and having like one's trying to have a conversation with you. I mean, that's not dark or evil or
No,
nefarious.
exactly. So sleep paralysis is quite
Mhm.
often used to explain shadow people, and I've had a similar thing with that before. That's your bog standard sort of one, and I get part of that is potentially sort of you can't move, you're panicking, and it's sort of maybe the sum of a fear is being attacked while you're vulnerable, and that's why people see a
Right.
vague shape. Um, so, but then obviously you've got other accounts. So, what would you say apart from just that? I guess are the main differences between the instances of sleep paralysis, shadow
Yeah.
people, and other experiences with shadow people.
Yeah, it's I mean it's kind of frustrating as a researcher because the medical community and like our over here our National Institutes of Health, and you can look this up on their website and their database where they have articles talking about what they call the intruder sort of phenomena and in relationship to sleep paralysis. So to them, shadow people are just a hallucination in relationship to sleep paralysis that you experience when you're waking up out of your sleep, which, so many people report seeing this during broad daylight. It could be walking through their house, it could be out in the woods, whatever. It's not always related to sleep. We see these things, all different situations, all different times of day. But this is where the medical community has kind of compartmentalized it, and they say it's just a hallucination as we're coming up out of the dream. And sleep paralysis is a real biological phenomenon. I've had it before. Actually, the reverse way, the way that people normally experience it normally is you're waking up and your body, sleep paralysis exists so you don't act out your dreams while you sleep, and sometimes when you wake up you haven't fully woken up from that paralysis. I've had it the other way where my body was so exhausted that it just fell asleep on me, but my mind was still cognizant of everything going on around me, which was really disconcerting. Um, so here's how I chalk this up. For one, when it comes to the hallucinations, why is it always a person that we see? People, when they're experiencing this, it is a shadowy figure, humanoid in shape. Sometimes it's wearing the different clothing and things like that. But we dream about all different kinds of things. We might have trees and bushes in our dreams. We might have cars and motorcycles in our dreams, but those aren't manifesting in our rooms as shadows. I haven't had anybody tell me about the big shadowy tree that manifested in their room when they woke up. It's always a person.
Mm.
Uh, so and then the question becomes, okay, what are we experiencing if it's not a hallucination? And why are we waking up to see this? So this is the example that I usually give people, and anybody who's had small children should be able to relate to it. So children wake up in the middle of the night, they've had a bad dream or need to use the bathroom or need to get a drink of water or whatever. They come up into the parents' room, and normally they'll tap the parent on the shoulder or shake them awake or something like that, and then you go and you take care of it. But every once in a while, you end up with that child. And my youngest son, Cameron, was notorious for this. They would just walk up to the side of the bed and stand there and stare and just wait for you to wake up. And so he would do that. And I'd wake up like, Cameron, what are you doing? It was like creepy, him just standing there staring, waiting. And he'd tell
Yeah,
me,
I've
oh,
had
yeah,
that.
exactly. I need to go. I need whatever. And so you go take care of it. It's
Yeah.
like, well, shake me awake next time. Okay. So then the question is, what woke me up if you didn't touch me? And it's because, I mean, it sounds very simplistic, but I felt his presence. We each have a toroidal field of energy that emanates out from us. And when his energy crossed into mine, my body could sense that somebody's basically in my space, and it woke me up, and there he is. It's why a lot of times you might not hear somebody enter a room, but all of a sudden somebody's there. You turn around, oh yeah,
Yeah, the
somebody's there.
classic feeling of being watched that people describe, you
Exactly.
know?
Yep. Yep.
We're sort
So
of
I think
hardwired for that.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's a defense mechanism. Yep. So I think what's happening here in a lot of these cases is um, this being enters the room. They have their own energy as well that's emanating forth that is crossing into your energy, and you feel that presence in the room, and it wakes you up. And sometimes, not every time, but sometimes you have that sleep paralysis when you wake up, and you're waking up. You see this figure in your room. Your mind usually goes to intruder in the room, somebody's broken into the house, that sort of thing, rather than immediately to shadow person. And but you can't move. And you want to do something about this. What do you do? And so your adrenaline starts to race and race and race and just kind of go down this rabbit hole. So I think it's really two different phenomena that are happening at the same time. You are experiencing, the shadow that's in your room, and the sleep paralysis is a separate biological phenomena.
I think it's interesting as well because a lot of time I think whether it is the case, but I think when people imagine sleep paralysis, maybe they haven't experienced it, that they imagine it's in the dark of the night. But when I had it, it was the morning, it was daylight.
Mm. Okay, yeah.
And I just felt like someone was sat on my chest. I could not move at all. I'd never heard I was about 17, it's 20 odd years ago, probably even more than that now. Um, and so no idea that sleep paralysis was a thing, but I had a feeling someone was sat on me and I couldn't move. And I could hear my mum. My mum, she passed away a long time ago, but she used to talk to herself.
Mm.
Um, and I could hear her kind of busy about the house, just chattering away. And I was trying to call out and I couldn't. I just couldn't move my mouth. I couldn't say anything. And as quick as it started and as bad as it was, it just ended and I could move again. Which I
Yeah.
think is fairly classic, what you'd call sleep paralysis. But it's
Yeah.
interesting because it happened in the daylight.
I've got to ask, and this is, I guess, almost a question for both of you, I guess, but because I mean, we've all experienced sleep paralysis. Have you found, just going to throw this one in really quickly, that when it's an actual genuine sleep paralysis, potentially medical, potentially not, at least for me, the presence usually in that case feels malevolent.
Yes.
There seems like something
Well,
off with it.
yeah, and that's where a lot of people go with it. And again, I think a lot of it is because of that fact that you can't move, and because you can't move, it's that's scary in and of itself. That
Mm.
is scary that
Yeah.
you can't move, and because your initial reaction isn't like, oh yeah, I have sleep paralysis, I'll just wait for it to stop. It's I can't move. I should be able to move. What is wrong? And so I think that fear and that rush of adrenaline through you in that moment because you can't move gets imparted onto this being, because you have that whole idea that, oh, they are causing your paralysis, they are
Yeah.
making it happen. And I really just don't think that's the case. I think they're there, they're doing their thing, whether it's watching, observing, we don't know, maybe they're just passing through. There could be a variety of different reasons as to why that being is there, but we assign this to them, just pure human nature. We want to try to figure out what's wrong with us. We didn't do this to ourselves, right? Somebody must be doing it to me because there they are. That's the intruder in the room. So this must be what they're doing to me. And I don't think that's the case.
Mm. You kind of wonder as well if it is an actual being and they were malevolent, surely they wouldn't stop unless they feed
Right,
off
exactly. If
terror.
they're a
I don't know.
malevolent being, right. If they're a malevolent being, they're probably going to do nastier things to you than just be like, you know,
Yeah, you can't
make you
move now.
stock
Yeah.
Haha.
make you stock still for what purpose, to what end, you know.
Yeah.
When it happened to me last, the one that I can really remember, I couldn't. I was sleeping on a friend's sofa, and like
Mhm.
him, my girlfriend, a couple others, they were still up on the porch, like or the balcony or something, like just to drink. And I turned in early, and I could hear them in the distance, but I could just feel this presence over me, and it was looming,
Yeah.
and like I could almost see it, but couldn't see it. But I just remember thinking to myself, you can't actually do anything other than glare at me. You can't actually do anything other than glare at me, and that seemed to get me through a little bit. But
Okay.
yeah,
I'll just say, I'll throw this out there. I mean, I have
Yeah.
had before while I was sleeping. There's something that did wake me up in the middle of the night. I couldn't see it at all, but I could feel it like trying to get inside me, and
yeah.
so that was scary. And that would have been something certainly much more malevolent if it's trying to get inside me. But in that case, there was nothing to be seen. It was invisible. So a
Mm.
little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've seen recently that you were in the UK yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so I wondered if we can talk a bit about maybe what your purpose of your trip was, and whether you had any kind of paranormal or historical experiences that stood out to you during your time here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my partner Kate, she lives in the Edinburgh area. Originally from England, but that's where she's living right now. She's going to be moving out here
Yeah,
shortly, which will be incredible. But yeah, I did have an experience. Really, it took until the last day. I mean, we visited a lot of different areas and kind of you know, she does a lot of similar research to me, and she's also a QHHT practitioner, so quantum healing hypnosis technique. So she does like a lot of past life regressions and all that sort of thing.
yeah.
So we're doing a lot of research and just enjoying the time, being with each other and all that. And our last day, we were headed to the Rollright Stones. And we were just about to make the turn onto the road where the stones are located. And Kate sees up in the air. She's like, Mike, what's that up there? And I'm driving. It's like the first time I'd ever driven in the UK, and I'm like doing everything I can to like drive correctly. And I take a quick look, and I'm like, is that a glider? And she's like, no, I don't think it's a glider. And I kind of slowed a little bit and get a little bit of a better look. I'm like, no, it's not. And so basically, it was this silvery disc shaped object. It was like this whitish silvery object, and it was just very casually gliding like in a straight line across the sky. It was really, really
Um,
fascinating. And so we finally turn onto the road, hoping that we can get a better view of it because we kind of passed it. It was headed in the opposite direction of the way
Yeah.
we were heading. So we were hoping when we turn, we get a better view of it. But there's all these trees there, and all of a sudden there's this black helicopter, shoom, right across the sky, chasing
wow.
after it. Yeah, it was pretty incredible.
Hmm.
So that
Um,
was that was our UFO sighting for the trip.
that's fantastic. I mean, it is sort of close, fairly close to a hotspot there, you know. It's
It is, yeah, yeah. Roll Right sounds very, very energetic.
so
Yeah, I know some of
going.
your. I was just going to say, I know
Yeah, you
some
go.
of your trip from what I've seen, you pass very close to where I live. So if you do come
Oh,
back,
really?
you'll have to give us a shout.
Okay.
I live about 20 minutes from Avebury, West Kennet.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm
Fantastic.
Yeah.
about an hour or so from it. So yeah,
Oh. Literally
but
drove through it today. So
Did you?
yeah, it's
Nice.
one of those. It's
Yeah, I
kind of
love
annoying,
Avebury.
isn't it? Because it's the local landscape. More often than not, I'm passing through. I'm not
Right.
stopping.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it. It's kind of bizarre how they, built the road and there's a little town right in the middle of this,
yeah,
very famous stone circle.
It's
And
bizarre.
we stayed just outside of the stone circle. There was a Airbnb that was over there. So like, a 2 minute drive to get there was wonderful. And so, yeah, we did the whole area, Avebury,
you
Silbury
did
Hill,
West Kennet, Long
um,
Barrow, and
Westgate, Long Barrel. That was interesting there. With some, we haven't really posted it yet. Well, Kate did a little bit, um, where we had West Kent Long Bear all to ourselves for probably a good 20, 30 minutes, which was wonderful. And there were these two birds that kept coming in and interacting with us, which was wonderful. And I had set of dowsing rods. There's some different symbols that Kate has kind of kept an eye out for. So I went into the barrow with the dowsing rods, and they're as I'm kind of walking along, they kept edging toward my left. And it was a area, because we'd already been there a little while. It was an area we hadn't really explored yet because you kind of have to climb into it and it's dark and all that. And so okay, get out the flashlight and we're taking a look. And so it was some of those symbols that she had been looking for. It's like, oh, okay, this is wonderful. So yeah, definitely had some interesting experiences along the way.
yeah, so we
Mm.
didn't really get anything there other than damp and rats scurrying around, did we?
Oh, we had some rats. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, we went
yeah. We had
up
we had the two birds they're very interactive with us. They were just coming
yeah.
right up to us. It was wonderful.
I think we went up in December. It was dark when we were there and cold and damp and the floor was wet
Yeah.
and very different experience.
Yeah, that wouldn't be fun. Yeah, we were there right at the end of April, beginning of May.
It's a good time to go up there, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of following on from that, really, given the sort of rich history and folklore that the UK has, I mean, lots of places have, but obviously we're quite keen on the UK stuff. Are there any specific locations or legends here that you find like particularly fascinating or interesting, or you hope you'd like to investigate further, or even just learn more about?
Yeah, well, Kate keeps telling me about Kilmartin and Aknabrak, that area, and all the megalithic stones that are up there, and just how huge and widespread the whole area is. And so, I mean, uh, so we're looking forward to doing that in October. We have an event in Alexandria, just outside Glasgow,
Yeah,
and so that's our Travels Through Time workshop that we're doing. Before we do, we have this Scottish Castle retreat in Arbroath the following weekend. So in between, we're going to be exploring that area
nice.
quite a bit.
It's a
So
great area.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I feel like I still have to do a lot more down there around Avebury, and because we had our time was limited, and Kate had kind of already warned me that, we really needed like a couple of full days to do that. We really only had the one to do it. So I really want to explore more down there as well.
There's so much around here, even ourselves. I mean, we've just recently took a road trip to Cornwall and we've both learned so much that we
Oh
we
yeah,
weren't even aware
Mhm.
existed even.
like
Um,
to the point where we this is going to go out after the Cornish stuff, isn't it? So I'm not doing a spoiler here, I guess. But there's like we camped beneath this tor and we had no idea until we got there and we thought, oh, we should probably actually look up what this is. And there was this whole bit of like creepy like witch folklore to do with
Hmm.
like a witch luring this mist in and sort of drowning travelers in the mud nearby until this like handsome young hero who had like a cloak of invisibility and could see through the fog kind of tricked her into drowning herself and said to haunt the place and everything. We had no idea of that until we were literally camped more or less beneath it, just the other side of a wall. And it was great because when we were finishing up doing our last bit of recording, a little bit of a mist was rolling in. We both thought we heard something outside of the tent. Could have just been tent in the wind, but I thought
Mhm.
Craig was getting up. He thought I got up for a wee. I thought he'd got up to try and sort of scare me. But the next morning we both got up around the same time, and you couldn't see 10 foot in front of you. It was just mist everywhere. It was
Oh wow.
amazing, but and just little bits like that, we just had no idea until we went and just went down there and lived it and surrounded ourselves with
yeah,
it. So there's always more stuff to learn, I guess.
Yeah.
it's
Well, and
it
that's
was
what I would say.
freaky.
It's always better to actually go to these places. You can do all the research that you want online or in books or whatever, watching documentaries, YouTube's,
Yeah,
whatever. But it's actually going to the locations like that where you really get to see and experience and learn better. Yeah.
yeah.
So looking at the time, I'm going to skip over. So just so you're aware, we were going to talk to you about Egypt and the pyramids, but we're not going to have
Ah,
time.
okay.
So that's going to have to be another one. And the other one I really
Got to come
wanted to talk
back.
to you about was the Alaska Triangle, which
Yeah. We can definitely
we'll
come
have
back
to
and do
come
all that.
back. I feel
Yeah.
like if we do that now, we're going to be rushing through and we're not going to give
Yeah.
them the justice they deserve, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
we have a few questions that we tend to use just for fun for guests, if you like,
Sure. Do
to
that.
round off the episode. So do you have a personal favorite cryptid or piece of folklore that you find particularly compelling or intriguing?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question because yeah, in my last couple of books, Travels Through Time, Portals to the Stars, any of those that talk about like missing time and things like that are really interesting to me. So we mentioned the fairy lore
Yeah.
earlier. So the story of Rhys and Llewellyn from Wales, and how Rhys had gotten lost in the fairy ring. Llewellyn was accused of murdering him, so they went back and like pulled him out of the ring, and he thought like only 5 minutes had passed. In kind of a similar vein, there in Romania, the Hoia forest, and just the stories of like the little 5-year-old girl walks into the forest, disappears, nobody knows what happens to her. 5 years later, she walks out of the forest. She's still a 5-year-old when she should be 10. So it's stories like that that really fascinate
Yeah.
me.
Um, so so following up on that, is there any sort of cryptid, any sort of entity that you've come across that you'd really rather or hope does not exist?
Yeah. I don't know. Because I'm really interested in where these things might be coming from. I mean, there's some of them like I don't think I'm like fully bought into the chupacabra or anything like that. Dogman sounds like kind of a sinister one, that sort of stuff. And how much of that is meant to kind of scare people? I'm kind of more interested in kind of piggybacking off the previous question. Okay, like Sasquatch. Sasquatch is one that I really do hope exists. I haven't seen one myself, but I know a lot of people that are in that field, and just this debate over, is it, some sort of, rare primate, or is it interdimensional in nature?
Mm.
And I've
Mm.
mentioned Kate a couple times here in her work through QHHT, and one of the past life regressions that she performed in my book Portals to the Stars. I actually included this session where it basically, this person in a past life was a Sasquatch. Neither of these ladies are into Sasquatch at all, but all of a sudden here she is, as a Sasquatch, using a portal, a wormhole to get to our dimension, our plane of existence. And so it's those things that I'm really fascinated about, and I hope it does exist, and I hope it exists in that way because it's fascinating type of research.
Mm. Do you want to wrap up with your Florida man question, Andy?
I
Are you going to
can.
do that today?
I can do. I can do. I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you're familiar with the Florida Man game. Um,
I don't think so.
Basically, just the incredible headlines that you get out of in the media that start with Florida Man, and then just some really
Okay.
incredible stuff. So the idea is that and this one's just a bit of fun, basically. It's up to you whether you want to do it.
Okay.
Essentially, all that I need is not the year, but the month and the day of your birth. You type that in with Florida Man, and you usually get an amazing headline. We do
Okay.
have a lot of it. So if you're up for it, I'll tell your
Yeah,
Florida Man.
sure. 21st of July.
Ah, there you go. Here's a good one. So sometimes it's when the article comes out, sometimes it's when the deed was done.
Okay.
This is a great one. I have seen this one before, but I might have just seen it when it came out. Florida man accused of stealing gator from golf course threw it around to teach it a lesson. And then afterwards, he was arrested. Suspect tried to flood holding cell after his arrest. So yeah, that
Oh,
is your Florida man story. A chap who
nice.
stole a gator from a golf course and threw it around to teach it a lesson.
That that actually, you know what? There's actually some significance to that.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, no, because we've talked a lot about shadow people, sleep paralysis, kind of the whole sleeping sort of scenario. And when I was a kid, I actually used to have on several occasions have dreams that had alligators in them. So
Wow.
Wow.
how appropriate. Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
was it you? You're actually from Florida, was it?
No,
Sorry.
no. It's never, especially as a kid, I had not yet been down to Florida. I've been several times since, but yeah, I have no idea. I just, as a kid, I kind of joked around that I must have been an alligator in a previous life. So that was,
Um, Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm just to mention, I don't know whether to make it or not, but talking about Sasquatch and the different things that sort of Bigfoot could be. One of the things we've been talking about a lot recently with Eric, who sort of runs the Willow Creek sort of museum, and various other people about the idea of it sort of almost being a nature sort of guardian spirit as
Mhm.
well. I
Yeah, like
quite
an
like.
elemental.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and whether that's a physical thing or something that we've developed in our psyche, which is a storyteller, I find just as fascinating.
Mhm.
The fact that we
Yeah.
keep coming up with these nature guardians, but and potentially
Mm.
sort of shadow people also fall in slightly to that realm as well. I always
Yeah.
thought, but
Certainly
um,
could. Absolutely.
That
um,
it does kind of connect to what you were saying earlier, Mike, as well, because you were talking about how you start researching one thing which leads to another,
Yeah.
and this has happened with us. So we've had guests on that have told us all about Bigfoot and how it's like this guardian spirit, but we've also had people on to talk about the Green Man being this guardian,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we're just finding this. To me at least, I'm starting to notice a pattern of people coming on that are I don't know, in the
Well,
corner of a particular creature being the guardian of nature.
yeah, and you look at the Green Man stories and legend, and you see his representation like all over the world. So this was a very, very significant figure. So are some of these other beings and things that we're chalking up as creatures or what have you, are they are they perhaps what's would be a good term? I don't know. Are they working for Green Man? Are they kind of like
Yeah.
emissaries that he has sent out to different areas of the
Oh, I like
world?
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So it's possible.
As a massive Tolkien nerd, that's got me thinking of like the Valar and their sort of their
Yeah.
emissaries to Middle Earth, you know. So I kind of
Right,
like that.
right, right. So no, and it just gave me that actually just gave me a wonderful idea because the fiction that I'm working on right now is sci-fi fantasy, and so yeah, something like that could certainly work in it. Yeah.
Oh,
We'll
fantastic.
expect our name credited in the back of the
Yeah,
book.
There you
absolutely.
go.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been great to chat to you, Mike, and I know you've got other things you need to get on with. So, I mean, if you're up for it to come back on and talk about some of the other stuff you
Absolutely.
do at some stage, that would be great. Do you want to give yourself a little plug, maybe where people can find out more
Yeah.
about you, find your books, that kind of thing, and your podcasts, of course?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me. MikeRicksecker.com is my primary website. My podcast is Connecting the Universe. Have the YouTube channel, the Mike Ricksecker YouTube channel has all kinds of stuff on that. Upcoming events that actually do have there in the UK. So I mentioned it before, the Travels Through Time workshop. That is
Yeah.
October 25th. And then the following weekend, which is Halloween weekend, 31st through the 3rd, is the Scottish Castle Retreat. So you can find all that information through my website, the events and tours tab, and also on my social media. And I guess also considering the events and tours tab. Any last minute people that want to jump onto the Egypt tour, the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour in November, we have that. And then be on the lookout, have a Black Forest and Rhine River cruise tour coming up in
Wow.
Germany
That sounds
next,
awesome.
yeah, next
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so much.
much.
I really appreciate it. It's been great.
And yeah, hope to have it. Yeah, just very, very easy and fun talking to you. So really do hope you come back and talk Alaska
Absolutely.
Triangle and a few other bits and pieces at some point.
Yep, let's do it.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks again to Mike for joining us. Really appreciate it. And until next time, stay
Stay
weird.
weird.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's been great.
It's literally
Have a
just
good
turned
evening.
6 o'clock here, so that's bang
Boom.
on.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. All right.
Have a good day.
Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
evening. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye bye.
Cheers.
Stay weird.